Hi, welcome to the first episode of Slaying the Craft, the show where we go inside the mind of a thriller writer. I'm your host, Sabrina Thatcher. I'm an author, book coach, podcaster, and most of all, huge fan of the genre. My first guest with me today, I'm so excited, is Jamie Lynn Hendricks. She's the author of 5 novels of suspense, including Kirkus Star reviewed I Didn't Do It. Her latest novel is called Their Double Lives and was released on May 20th of this year. Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. It is an honor just knowing you that I've known you for years and you're just so fun and lovely to be around. And the fact that I am your first guest is just like, thank you. I really appreciate
I'm
you
so
having
excited.
me. This is going to be so fun.
Okay, so I told you before we got started, but I'm very excited about Their Double Lives, and I'm going to go pick it up from the Poison Pen today. Their Double Lives is about a woman with her dog. Can you tell us a little bit about it? I'm super excited to read it.
Yes. First of all, I want to show you what I did. I kind of tried to match, like what I was wearing, and I've got all
Ooh.
these fun colors in it. So, because this
Oh,
is,
I love it.
I love what they did with this cover. So,
That cover is so gorgeous. I
it
think the
really sets the
colors that they
scene.
used is perfect.
Yeah, it sets the scene well too, with like, the table with all this stuff, because what happens here is, it's all about, what would you do for your dog? So I would do anything for my dog. I think most people would do anything for their dog, but would you murder somebody? I mean, I would, especially if it's, if it's a stranger and
This is
you're
why
not
we
going to
want to
get
go
caught.
inside your mind, Jamie.
Yeah, if it's a stranger and you're not going to get caught. So sure, why not? Like it gets, so it's not that okay, so here's what happens. I'm just rambling now. So anyway, it's about Kim Valva, which we'll get into. I think you know the story about Kim Valva, but we'll get into that in a minute.
Wait,
But
hold on. Wait, what do you mean? I know the
okay,
story of
so the main character in this book is named Kim Valva. And I'm sure you know Kim Valva. She's a bookstagrammer. She's in that Houston murder by the
Oh.
book thing. Okay, well she bid for I was
Oh, to
referencing by
be
the way.
the name a character.
Yeah, so it was for the Arthritis Foundation, and she bid to be a character. She ended up getting the highest bid. And then when I went to Murder by the Book in Houston, she lives there. And then we had lunch before I went to my signing, and we started discussing like how we're going to put her in. And I was like, I can make you the main character. And she was like, oh my God. And I was like, oh my God. So it was like so fun. So now like the main character is really like a real person who is not a murderer, but all good stuff. So yes,
I love that.
this centers around Kim Valva, who is a waitress at a country club. Also, she's a graphic designer who, lost her job when everybody started working from home. So she's been doing freelance, and then she is doing this waitressing at a country club. And her dog, Murphy, which is Guaranteed Reed, if you
I
everybody knows.
know Guaranteed Reed's dog Murphy. I knew
Everybody
that
knows
one.
Bear. So I made it a golden doodle named Murphy for his dogs. It's a lot of stuff in here. It's like, hitting home for me. So she has this beloved golden doodle who has needs life-saving surgery, and she cannot afford it at all. Like she's behind on everything. She's maxed out on everything. Her parents have no money. She's not close with them. And she's just really struggling because this dog kind of saved her life when she, really needed it. And she's struggling, and then she gets a note from a stranger. There's an envelope left at her door, and it's got a burner phone and a note saying, answer me. And she finds out that this stranger is offering her a large sum of money, and all she has to do is put a pill into the new member's drink when he gets there on Friday, and then he'll die, and she's never going to be found out, and everything's fine. And she's like, okay, I'm not a murderer, I can't do this. But then the dog has another seizure, and she's like, I have to do anything to save the dog, because she saw the dog looking at her like, Mommy, please don't let me die. And of course, that's going to make you do anything. So she decides she's going to do it. I'm not giving anything away. This all happens in chapter 1. So Friday night comes, and the new member walks in with he's in his upper 30s. He's got a 22-year-old fiance, and she looks at him, and it is her ex-boyfriend from high school. And 15 years have passed. She hasn't seen him or spoken to him. And she obviously decides she can't do it. And then she starts wondering, like, what he has gotten himself involved in, why somebody wants him dead, why they picked her, if they know about their past together. And she starts having all of the feels, and then says, oh my God, I can't do it. gets rid of the poison and everything and starts freaking out and, figuring I have to talk to him and let him know that he's in danger. And then at the end of dinner, his fiance drops dead. So clearly
When I read
something,
that on the back cover copy, I literally gasped, Jamie. I was like reading the back cover copy and I gasped on the back cover copy. And I was like, well, this is definitely going to be okay.
yeah, but then she has to try to figure out, like, okay, were they both involved in something? And if I was supposed to kill him and he's still alive, who was supposed to kill her? Can I trust anybody around me? What's going on? And, the further she goes into it, the more she realizes what she kind of has gotten herself into and what was really going on, behind closed doors, as they say in suburbia. And it's told half between Kim and then half between the fiance who eventually dies, but it's her parts come before. So you kind of see what is
Oh, like
leading
dual
up.
timeline?
Yeah. So you're seeing what was happening in her life with Anthony that was leading up to what happened with both of them being targeted, and then Kim dealing with the aftermath and, trying to wonder if she's in danger because she already took half the payment and she didn't do anything. And then she starts wondering what's going on. And everybody's, she wants to know, who is this? The person calls themselves the stranger. And she is like, who is the stranger and what the hell is going on? So it's super fun. I like it. And then
Yeah, no, I think it sounds fantastic. And what like an interesting story question to have. Like, how far would you go to save your dog? But then the other piece is that if you were going down a path and you stopped, like how much more further are you going to go back down that path? Like now you've gotten yourself into a situation.
yeah,
How
now
are you
you're
going to handle
doubly
that
screwed.
incredibly? Yeah, like you've really screwed. Your dog's still like messed up.
Uh-huh.
Sweet baby.
Sweet baby, I know.
And then now you have to deal with this of like, okay, so people are dying, I'm involved now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is set in New Jersey, right?
Yes. This one is in New Jersey, and
Yes.
in New York City and in like New Jersey Beach Club, country club by the beach type thing.
Yeah. Did you have experience with those places when you lived there?
No, when I didn't even nickname somebody after a horrible person at the country club either, because that would be terrible. No, seriously. Yes, I have extensive. I grew up in New Jersey. I'm in Florida now, but I grew up in New Jersey, and
Yeah.
I moved to New York City for like almost 10 years. And then I was in Hoboken for 8 years. And then I went back to suburbia. So my husband is a golfer. So he wanted to, join the country club, which was fine. And, 99% of the people that we met there were lovely. I just, there is one character who is, she's not friendly. She is a stereotypical country club, real housewife type person. And, you know, she might be modeled after somebody that I had contact with there a few times and did not appreciate. So, but
Well, I mean,
it's still
here's
a
what
vibe. I
like
didn't
we
kill
are
her.
always I hear this all the time. If you don't want people to write bad things about you, don't behave badly.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
Yep. Especially like, I'm a writer, I kill people in books. Like I'm either going to kill you or I'm going to make you
Yeah.
horrible. So I'm going to make people hate you as much as I do.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. And so what was your experience writing this book? Because this is your fifth novel that has been released. What was the experience with this one versus any of the other ones, your kind of timeline, all of that?
This one, I've been asked this question before. So it's this one like annoyed the hell out of me because I had no idea how it was going to end. So that was driving me crazy because normally in the other four, I knew how they were going to end. That was because once it's easy for me to write when I know how they're going to end because it's like, okay, just get there. I know I make it sound so much
Yeah.
easier than it is. But when I didn't know how it was going to
Yeah, you
end,
do
I
make it
didn't
sound
know.
way easier than it actually is. You don't
I know.
just get there.
But like when I didn't know how it was going to end, I was just like, da, 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 da. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm doing this. Like, what is the point of all of this? But the fun part that was also completely different on this one than the other ones. I didn't feel like I got a muddy middle. You know how normally like you get the beginning of it out,
Yes.
you set everything up, and then you kind of have an idea how it's going to end. But in the middle, it's like, okay, I don't know what to do now. But this one, the middle was so
because it's all the
fun.
stuff that they have to do that's wrong
Yes.
before they get to the right answer.
Yes, and especially because I had half of it was from PJ, who was the fiance. Half of it was from her point of view, and like the stuff that happened in the beginning, there was a way that they got there, so it was very easy, getting into her chapters and being like, all right, I could just make this happen and make this happen, and all of that other stuff was kind of easy to put together. And then I would play it off of, something that happened. And then it would kind of relate to something that Kim was going through in the present. And that's how I kind of like cliffhanged like every chapter. And I kind of had them like intertwining all through the middle. But then when I was getting to like the last 20%, I just had no idea what to do. And it was driving me nuts. And then I'm like, I hate this book. I'm like, I don't even, no one's going to want to publish this book. I hate it. It's so bad because I don't know what I'm doing. And then, shower thoughts, everybody just gets the shower thought. And I was just like, ooh. And then it all just came together. And then and then it was easy to write it after that. And then when I put it together, I mean, obviously you had to go through, the months of editing and, having your critique partners read it and, switch all that stuff up. But I felt comfortable with the way it was plotted out. I thought it was well plotted. And I liked the way that the twists and turns happened. And I really was satisfied with this book, especially considering how much I hated it in the beginning. So I ended up being really happy.
Well, which I think is important. I think that's an important thing to say. So this is what, like maybe your 10th book you've written total,
Yes.
maybe?
And see,
I think you had like 5 before.
Yeah. And I had 5 people. Oh, I got my agent on my 5th book, but there are also, and none of those will ever see the light of day. Those are before books. Those were bad writing and just not understanding the craft and all that stuff. But the funny thing about why I said like I ended up loving this book and why I ended up thinking it was good is because I have 4 other books that are, 30,000 words in. And then I'm just like, nope. And I don't like it. And I just don't like it. And I won't finish it. I mean, I might one day because I still have the idea in my head and I know how those end, but I just end up not liking it, or a newer, better idea gets into my head, and then I just toss the other ones. And it's our brains. You write thrillers; our brains are in overtime.
Yeah. Well, that also past ones. I think there's a level of. So I've written one book that I queried, and so I'm going to be pitching a new one at Thriller Fest in June. But so that first one, it's all just your first ones are definitely learning. I don't know who can write their first book and just immediately get it, because even after reading a ton, it's there's so much you have to learn, not only about the craft itself, how to build a plot, all of those things, all that, but then you have to get into, with mysteries and thrillers, I think it's so interesting because you're doing redirections. So you're lying and you're also having to build a mystery. Do you know, it's so hard. I don't know how detectives do their jobs. This is so hard.
But that's the other thing too. There's so many types of thrillers. You have the detective ones, which follow the detective and the clues. And you have the suburban ones, like the domestic thrillers, which is normal people in abnormal situations. And then you've got the ones that are all about the social media and that, outward, being out there and all that. So there's just so many different subgenres, which within the mystery, suspense, and thriller. And you kind of have to learn the pacing for each one along the way, because detective ones could go a little slower. The domestic suspense ones have to go faster and be, page turner. And, everything is a learning experience. With everything. I mean, even I'm still learning. And it's crazy.
Well, that's the point I was going to make to bring it back around, was that you said you were hating the book. You had the last 20-30% to go, didn't like it, but that is normal. So I'm just trying to say this for the people who are learning how to write, as I've been oh my God, especially in my first book and even now with the second one, I hate this. This is terrible. What am I doing? I want to give up, but I not give up. All of those things, but it's normal. Jamie is 10 books in, 9 books in, 10 books in. It still happens. So it's always really I think it's just so valuable to hear from people who have been successful in the business that the whole process, it's hard. It's hard.
It never stops either. That's the problem. It just never stops. It actually gets worse. I'm sorry. It just gets worse and worse and worse.
For the writing, because is it because you know all the things you're doing wrong now, or is that
Yes,
because you're like, oh crap, I have
yes.
to deal with
Because
all these other voices?
do you know what I used to do? I used to write the book to get the story out and just be like, okay, I'll edit it later. I just got to get this. I have to hit the end so I know what I'm doing. But now because I know, like you said, like I know more like what I'm doing wrong. I just go back and I nitpick and I nitpick and I'm like, it can't be this way. And I'm like, stop doing that because that doesn't help either. And it drives me crazy. And I try not to, but just everybody just needs cookies. That's really what it is. Cookies and like a glass of wine or, sometimes you just got to get
Yes.
something. You got to reward yourself when you finally do get it right. Cause sometimes I'll struggle for a day on a page and it's like, what am I doing? Why am I sitting here for an entire
Yeah.
day on one page? But it's because
Hours,
yeah,
hours,
yep,
sometimes days in like that same chapter, and you're just like, I can't. I don't even know what this was. I don't even know what it is anymore. I've
yeah.
lost it.
Yeah, but that's why, like, when I'm done and I hit the end, because they always say, like, you're too close to it, you've just gotten into it, like, put it away for a little while. But that's when I give it to my critique partners. And I'm like, okay, do your worst. And then by the time they're done, and I see all the things that, as somebody who's reading it for the first time, and who's also like a writer who knows about the pacing and like all the stuff that we're all supposed to know. And I don't want them to tell me what's good about it. I want them to tell me what's bad about it because I've already written it. It's done. Tell me what's bad so I can fix it. So I need to fix the bad stuff. You got to have a very thick skin in this business because not everybody's going to love your books, and that's fine. I don't love every book that's out on the shelf either, so it's subjective. That's cool. Yeah, like there's going to be like thousands upon thousands of people who hate my books, and that's cool. I mean that you have to deal with that. Like some of my favorite books that I've ever read in my life have thousands upon thousands of one-star reviews, and that's okay because not everybody likes everything. But when I don't want that thrown back at me again later about like how bad this part is, which is why I'm like, please tell me what's wrong with it first before it goes out. And people are still going to hate it, but I'd rather have people, before I give it to my agent or my editor, like have the parts that are glaringly bad. I want to try to fix those first.
Yeah, I agree. I think that like using other writers too that are fans of the genre really help with that like critique partner piece where you've got like somebody who is not just a fan but actually understands what they're reading in the sense but isn't a developmental editor because that's a wholly totally different kind of work and read through. What you're
Yeah.
looking for with a critique partner is somebody like you can work through the story with, right? And I know you've got at least one that is pretty like Jessica Payne, I
Mhm.
believe, right?
Yes. She's one
And
of them.
she is as an author in her own right with several books.
And Mary Kalikoa. So she does. We exchange almost all of her books. Vanessa Lilly. We exchange a lot of stuff too. I'm actually helping her with the one that she's writing right now, which is so excellent. And I'm not going to say anything because it's not my story to tell, but it's different than what she's written before, and it's really cool. So I just wanted to let everybody know that it's coming.
Wait, so Vanessa's new book is different, you said? Like,
Yes.
is it the next one
No,
in the
not the
series or
phone
the
case.
next
The
one?
one that
I'll cut this part out. I genuinely want to know.
the one that she's writing now.
That's so awesome. That sounds amazing. Her books are so good.
Yeah.
They're so good.
So she's still writing it. It's a couple of years before anything happens with it, but like, it's out there and it's coming. So
Yeah. But so the thing is, like, you're working with a critique partner. So you're able to share ideas with the critique partner. And that is really, really helpful because I'll say, like, for my experience, my first book, I talked to a lot of people about all the time. That was not smart because that was too many
too
cooks in the
many
kitchen.
problems. Yeah.
And then so this one, I've now told like basically nobody about it. And then it's also very isolating. So I think that there's got to be a happy balance somewhere where you are talking to someone who understands your book and understands your work you're trying to get to without like having too many voices
Yeah.
telling you, oh no, because you get like five people, you get five different opinions, and then you have to decide which one is the one that sounds
And it goes back to the whole thing where writing is subjective. And even though these are other writers and they're helping you, you know, considering that kind of everybody is kind of an expert in doing what they're doing, if you get five different expert opinions, it's going to muddy your brain up. you know?
Yeah. But yeah, I think to your point, like you have to be able the one that makes the decisions. Like you know your story as the author, right? Like you're the ultimate master of that story. So it's just trying to figure out what you want to take in. And especially as a newbie writer, you're just like want to take in everybody's opinion because you're like, oh, I'm supposed to do it this way. Right.
Yeah. And also when, you know, when you're like not a newbie writer and you're like I said, how I didn't know how to end this book. And if I was listening to like a bunch of different opinions and I didn't know how to end it, it would just drive me crazy because then it would really be, then I'd be like, I'm doing everything wrong. So you know,
Yeah.
you got to pick and choose. You have to pick and choose, like,
Yeah,
which is
that
why
is
like
very true.
my three are good because it's like, you know, I know how all of them work already now. So, and we know how each other work. So it's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. It takes a little bit to kind of get into like a routine, but once you do, like then you know, like, yeah, I have the same kind of thing with my writing group. I did want to ask you a couple of questions.
Okay.
So first, one question I'm going to ask everybody who joins us is, why are you writing the dark and twisted? What drew you to this genre? Why are you writing about novels of suspense instead of fantasy or romance or the next American literary novel?
Okay. I can answer that. I'm not smart enough to write the next the next American literary novel.
Girl,
So
that's the same reason I said it.
and
I was like, that
that's
is
cool.
too
I'm
fancy
fine.
for
I'm
me.
staying in my lane. I'm good. I'm perfectly okay with not writing the next American literary novel. So that's that. I don't write fantasy because I just can't. I know, like, you can't have people named Jamie and Sabrina in fantasy. You have to have, like, you know, Gakalaban and, you know, Petra
Yeah.
Lagu and, you know, and I can't follow it. That's why, like, I can't read fantasy because I just can't follow it. And honestly, like, they're
You're
too
like, I don't even
long.
know what that is.
But, like, they're too long, and I
They're
know they're
so
supposed to
long.
be. They're supposed to be, and, like, that's fine, and there's a I mean, I look at how popular that whole genre is. There's a huge market for it, and it's like they're making movies out of left and right, and but I like my books short and snappy. Give me, like, you know, like, let's get in, get to the point, fast paced, you know, blah, blah, blah. And
Yeah.
the reason I do the murder is because the very first book I wrote, you know, 100 years ago. It was like, it was 12 years. It was 2013 that I wrote the first book. And it was like and this is when, okay, you have to understand, I knew nothing. I did not start out anywhere except for saying I'm going to write a book. I had no knowledge of writing. I had no critique partners, no nothing. Knew nobody in any sort of writing industry. So I didn't know the rules at all. So I wrote a contemporary, basically like a contemporary women's fiction, you know, kind of about, it
Yeah.
wasn't like a click clack meet your, you know, your person in New York City at the big high power job, but it was like, you know, somebody finding themselves and, you know, doing the thing and meeting the person and having the relationship. And I ended up well, first of all, I ended up killing the guy at the end, which, you know, was kind of a no-no if you're trying to do something like anything with any
Yeah. You're
sort
not
of
really
like,
supposed to do that in contemporary fiction.
yeah. And it wasn't a romance at all, which is definitely a no-no. But there was like a romance story in it. But like, you know, I ended up killing the guy. And then like the more I read it, I was like, I liked it. I liked that it was dark. And then I was like, I think I would rather kill people in books instead of making them happy and finding themselves and finding their job. Like I just didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to do more of this dark stuff. And also, when I say that I didn't know anything about anything. I just thought that, you know, because everybody who writes their first novel the first time is just like, it's the best thing in the world because your mom will tell you and your best friend will tell you. And um, it was, like I said, a contemporary women's fiction, and it was 148,000 words. And none of them could be cut because it was perfect as it, oh my God, I just think about going back and like throwing this at agents for like almost 2 years and thinking that they didn't understand. I'm like, no, you just have to read the whole book, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I look back on it. First of all, I look back on it now. It was a great story. It was just not well written at all. 0%, do not recommend, 2 thumbs down, no stars. I mean, it was awful. And because my mom, who was not a writer, and my best friends who were not writers thought it was good, it just like puffed up my head where it did not need to be. And I just kept on going and going and being like, no, if the agents don't understand, the agents who like literally do this for a living, no, they didn't understand. Oh God, what a
They didn't get
lesson.
it. They don't understand the book. I've met
Yeah,
people who literally have said those words to me. Agents just aren't understanding my book. And
no,
I was
no,
and
you
I
don't
like I was
understand
giving
the answer.
feedback and
Just a hard,
yeah,
hard
but they're like,
lesson to learn.
there's it is a hard lesson to learn, right? The
Yeah.
person I was talking to was like, I have a whole novella that explains things before we get to the opening chapter. And I was like, no agent knows or cares
No,
about that.
no, that's
So
the thing.
just
It's
like
like
you got to look at the whole work.
you've got to get yourself out of main character syndrome. That's what it is. Like you are like the world is not going to revolve or like everybody thinks they wrote like the next best thing. And you know, I'm like mentoring some writers like around here, and you know, it's just some people just don't get it. Like one said, like she wants to contact Penguin Random House because she knows once they read it that they're going to buy it and they're going to make it into a movie. And it's an adult fantasy at 50,000 words. And I tried to tell her, like, you need to double that word count. And she said, no, you just don't understand. Meanwhile, I don't understand. Yes, trust me, I do. But she said, I don't
Yeah.
understand. And as soon as Penguin Random House reads it, I'm like, you have to get an agent before Penguin Random House is going to read it. And she said, no, I don't. I'm going to submit it to them and they're going to read it and they're going to love it. And you know, you got to get out of that mindset because trust me, we all think that
Yeah.
way, but that's just not how it works. And you're doing a disservice to yourself and to your writing because you can improve your writing. Look, I always say like the books that you see on Barnes and Noble bookshelves, 99% of the time, that's not the person's first manuscript. I think first
Yep.
manuscripts, we have to write to learn what we should do and what we shouldn't do. And you know what? Sometimes people
Yep.
go back to their first one when they learn and they make it something better. Like mine was too much of a mess. I'm never going back to that one. But people who can, like that's fantastic. Like you learned what you had to do and you pushed through, you made it with something else, and now you can apply what you've learned and go back at to your other ideas. But you have to really, you have to listen to people who are, ahead in the process because we've gone through it. I mean, trust me, anyone who thinks, I mean, like I said, it took me 5 years and 5 manuscripts to get an agent. 5 years I was trying to get an agent. And, I just kept on learning. And then finally I learned about critique partners and writing groups and all that stuff. And, I started meeting with the other authors. I was going to Thriller Fest before I had an agent. I was meeting people and, doing the stuff that you have to do to learn. I was willing to learn. I
Yep.
had, but in the beginning, I had a huge ego about it because again, my mom and my friends told me it was the greatest thing in the world. It's going to be a movie, blah, blah, blah. And, it just, and then I just had too much of an ego to let it go. And then, and I think most writers are like that in the beginning because look, man, you wrote a book. How cool is that?
Dude,
I
it's
mean,
hard. It's
it's
hard.
so
You
hard
wrote
and
a
it's
book,
so
even if
cool, right?
sits in your drawer, you wrote a
Yeah.
fucking book. That is so hard to do.
Yeah. And it's
May
like, I
not be
mean it.
good,
It's
but you
like,
did it.
but it's like, please pat yourself on the back. You absolutely deserve that. But you also have to know that, when people say, oh, you're stifling my creativity, like, I'm sorry, it's a business. Like maybe, and that's why like self-publishing is legit for people who just don't want to follow the rules. They could do whatever they want when they're
Right.
self-publishing, which is why I think it's exploding so much right now because people don't want to deal with trad publishing. And, I,
Yeah.
I don't I don't blame them for running that way. Trad publishing, it's hard. But,
It's
if
hard.
you want to
It's
get
hard.
there, which, you just have to follow the rules. You have to stay with you gotta do all the,
It's
you
more
gotta
than
just
just getting there too, because like if you're trying to make this as to a career, right? Like it's the longevity of staying there too. That becomes a whole other issue way further down the road if you're trying to stay into trad publishing and being able to continue to make that into a career. You're just getting into a whole other like that is the business, right?
yes.
And one of the things I read somewhere is that the business person, I have it written on my wall, so I'm looking over here. I have a bunch of like post-it notes with like things to remind myself when I start getting freaked out. The business person shouldn't be in charge when you're writing. So your writing needs to be your
Creative.
story,
Yeah.
and then think about the business afterwards, right? Because it's easier to edit that way anyway.
Yeah, when you know that like your book is a product. You have to sell your product to, the company that wants to distribute your product. So your product has to be what they're looking for. So I totally understand that. And it's tough. Look, it's right here. I have this thing right here. I'm just gonna pull off my wall. It's not behind me. It's right here. I'm still here. But this is I have this on my wall. Hold on. When you when you feel like quitting, think about why you started.
Love that.
And that's a huge motivator for me because, I still sit here and I want to quit at least once a week. I do. And I have 5 trad books out and I still want to quit every week. It's just like, nope, this is too hard. I'm not doing this anymore. There's still too much rejection everywhere, no matter what step of the game you're in, you're still getting rejected. You're still getting like people are saying shitty things about you. They're saying shitty things about your story. But it's the business. It just is. It's unfortunate. But it is what it is. And I hate that saying,
Yeah.
but
It is, I think and it is really about keeping going, and especially like it's just like everything I've ever heard from anyone is just the perseverance. You just like keep going because you're going to keep learning, you're going to keep like figuring
Yes.
things out. So on a side note though, on craft specifically, one of the things I think you do super well, Jamie, is like salacious, soapy kind of characters that are all just very fascinating, but like they're like normal people, but they've all got some like weird like secrets and other things. So how do you develop your characters?
Well, I like the books that I read. So like sometimes when you're reading like a review on a book and someone's like, well, I didn't like it because the characters were unlikable, shoots right to the top of my list. I love
Yeah, you're like, exactly, that's
unlikable
what I want.
characters. I love them. I love watching them do horrible things to people. I love watching them get their comeuppance, which is like the fun part about it. But I love following like a shady character. I think that's so cool. So like, I tend to write shady characters in my books because I just think it's so much more fun. Like, look, I'm not writing romance and I'm not writing, like we said, the next great American novel. So I'm having fun with it, man. Like I'm making them bad. I'm just making them do terrible things. And, it's fun. It's like people in suburbia. It's like, like, I don't know what my neighbor across the street's doing. Like, are they poisoning people? Are they, hiding stuff? Are they secrets? And are they, having an affair with the person next door? Their father, their husband really the father of their kid? And like, I like, it's like, okay, writing these books, it's like constantly eavesdropping on somebody because you're the one making them
Yes.
think,
Okay.
like
Yes.
you're the one
So you're
doing all
like,
this.
basically, you're like, I get all the tea because I make up
Yes,
the tea.
I get all the tea, but I'm writing it, but I feel like I'm eavesdropping on them, which is why it's so fun. That's why, like, I love this genre. I like being able to, just make things bad. And like, I love morally gray characters. It's my favorite thing in the world. Like I always say, like, uh, Last Mrs. Parrish was like one of my first favorites because not because of Daphne, because of Amber. I loved Amber because she
Amber.
was a sick, crazy person who was doing horrible, terrible things. And I was like, yeah, man, give me more of this. Like, I love watching stuff like that and reading stuff like that.
Do you think that do you find that it's a way to kind of explore some of those like things that, well, on one side it's voyeurism. I totally agree with you completely on that. There's a way to explore things that like you would not normally get into. So for example, like I don't go on the dark web, but my first book, I wrote about them going on the dark web. So it was like, ooh, what is that like? Like you're kind of like dipping your toe into the actual bad things in
Yes.
life. Like, do
Yeah,
you find that? And or
that's funny because my work in progress, one of the main character's best friend is a hacker. And so I'm starting to find out stuff about that. But I can say, my husband is still alive because I get to kill people on page.
You know what? I
A
think
lot
that's
of
healthy
people,
for those relationships.
when I get frustrated and like when somebody's just walking slow in front of me, or like just anything that like frustrates the hell out of me, I'm just like, I channel that and I murder somebody on page. That's why I'm such a good person in real life.
Well, that's the thing, is that we get it out. Like, it's still like, it's very cathartic. I think I
Yes.
started writing like, here's like random scenes that will pop into your head that have maybe nothing to do with anything of like any specific story. But like one day I was on a flight and the guy in front of me was just like moving his chair, just like doing all kinds of things. He was annoying the shit out of me. So I wrote a little short story on my phone about how he died.
This is freaking therapy, Sabrina. That's
It's
what I got to start doing. Short stories. Killing people in
just
short
little short.
stories.
They're just scenes. They're little flash fictions about this motherfucker is gonna go.
God, you must
This
feel
is
so much
happening.
better after that, though.
Oh, I did. Yeah, totally. And then I found it like a couple months later, and I was like, huh, this is kind of fun.
No, you're giving me inspiration for like daily life, just everything that I hate. I'm just gonna just kill people all the time. It's
Yeah, there you
fantastic.
do. And then it's just like, okay, okay, actually, it's not so bad. um, okay, so if you could teach a new writer one thing, what would it be? And can you teach it to me right now?
Yes, I actually brought it with me. This was a book that, well, actually my husband got me this for when before I got an agent. And I was struggling with writing and I was crying all the time, rejection all the time. And for Christmas, he just got me like a bunch of, craft books. And I know everybody says Save the Cat is like the big one that everybody has to read,
Yeah.
which I read and I agree. It's a fantastic craft book. But
Mhm.
the thing I didn't like about it is if you didn't, because it basically tells you how to write a book based on a movie and how they did it here. But if you don't know the plot, beginning, middle, and end of every single one of those movies, I can't follow it. I can't follow the advice because I don't know what happened in the movie. I don't know how to relate that to a book. So it was very
Yeah.
confusing for me. And what I was
Yeah.
struggling with, as we talked about this, like exposition in the beginning. Like we create these characters and we know every single thing about them and we want
Mhm.
the reader to know every single thing about them in the first 50 pages. And like that is just all backstory and it's a terrible, terrible way to write a book. So
Mhm.
my husband got me this book, literally called The First 50 Pages. And it's by
Okay.
Jeff Gerke and Donald
Okay.
Mass. I'm a Donald Mass.
Love Donald Mass.
He's not my agent, but my agent is a Donald Mass agent. And he endorses it. It's actually excellent. After I read this, and I was like, duh, because trying to get an agent is just grabbing them in the beginning, making them want to request
Yeah, those
the
first
book.
pages are so important.
The first 50 pages, I read this book on a plane, I remember, beginning to end. And I went right back to my manuscript and I was like, I know what I have to do. I got my agent like 3 weeks later. So,
Whoa.
yeah. And I was
Whoa,
like, I
what?
applying what I learned in this book and like redoing the entire beginning to make it like exactly what was in this book about like the lessons and the things that you have to do and how you have to structure it. It was life changing for me. It was a life
Oh my
changing.
gosh.
So every time somebody's like, "Oh, I don't know what to do," I'm like, "This one, get this book. This is an amazing book. That is the best craft book I've ever read." So
Okay. Well, I'm going to get it immediately after this.
that's my advice. Everybody, go get the first 50 pages by Jeff Gerke, and also, the obvious we talked about, like the perseverance. Like, don't give up. You're going to get kicked in the teeth over and over and over in this business. I mean, I'm still getting kicked in the teeth. It's, that's just the way this business is. So if it's your dream
Yeah.
to be traditionally published, just keep going. Like I said, 5 years,
And just know, like,
5
it's going
years.
to be hard. Like, it is
Mm-hmm.
hard. But
Yeah.
the thing is, like, dreams are not meant to be easy, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's supposed to be. If you have this dream and you have this thing, even like I think about, actors and singers and things like this. So they're having like this kind of dream of being on stage and all of that. That's so much hard work. It's so much
Mm-hmm.
hard work. And it is not just a like, I think the thing is understanding and liking the work itself is what's
Yeah.
important too.
And they
Like
have to work at
liking
their
that experience,
craft
even when
too.
you hate it.
But they have to work at their craft too. Like you don't just become like a wonderful, like fantastic actor or actress overnight. Like you have to
Yeah.
go to acting school. You have to, play off of other people and read scripts and pay your dues. You got to do the bit part where you walk on and you just say hello to somebody. You got to do the
Yep.
baby things to get where you want to go. Unfortunately, you have to,
Absolutely.
like I've read this everywhere where it says like every overnight success probably took 10 years. And like
Yes. Yeah. There's no such thing.
you don't see like what people have gone through in the background. You just see all of a sudden this person is out there and they're, on the, a debut on the New York Times bestseller list. Like, congratulations. It probably took them 10 years. That was not an
Yeah.
overnight success. That was
Yeah.
rejection and heartbreak and learning and, all the stuff that everybody goes through. So,
Yeah.
just,
Absolutely. And it's again, it goes back to that whole thick skin because it's only going to get worse if
mhm.
you're really like
If you
doing
don't have a thick
this.
skin, you're not going to have a good time.
Not going to have a good time. Okay, so we are going to get to the section that I call rapid fire. So
God.
all of the interviews I'll be doing will end with these questions. The whole idea here is that I want to be able to help show everybody that we're not so different, and that your problems in writing your book are similar to other people's problems from writing their book, and all that kind of stuff. So, all right. So just like first thing that comes to your head,
Oh, God.
what's on your desk?
On my mouse. Oh,
That's what you have on your writing desk, just your mouse.
like you want everything. I thought we were going like bam,
Like what's
bam,
on your
bam.
writing
Okay.
desk?
I have a bunch of books here because I'm sloppy. Honestly, like I don't know why. Like you asked, I have a pair of flip flops on my desk. Um, I have a stapler. I've got my ring light. I have this, which everybody's going to do this one day. This was the email that I got from my agent when she offered rep. So I printed it out and I framed
Oh,
it. So I look at that all the time
that's
because
amazing.
that's there. And my big printer and just a bunch of books scattered all over. And for some reason, scissors. I don't know. And this little Eiffel Tower guy. This little Eiffel Tower.
It's just
That's it.
interesting. So many people have different things. They're like, oh, like my desk has to be nothing, or like it has to be full of all the things. It's just really, it's
Sloppy.
interesting.
I'm sloppy.
I'm sloppy
I
too.
throw things here. I'm just like, I'll get it later.
Okay, so what ritual, if any, do you have before or after you write?
Um, you know, a lot of people say they do things where they do this before or they reward themselves this way after. I actually don't. I don't have a ritual. I just the way I write is just like, all right, when I'm actively writing, I just say, okay, I want to do 1,000 words a day, whether that takes me half an hour or 8 hours. I want to do 1,000 words a day. If the muse has me, I'll keep going, but I try to do the minimum 1,000 words a day. That's my only real like writing ritual, I guess. And
Okay.
it's during,
Yeah,
it's
that
not
makes
before or
sense.
after. So I was probably no help there.
So if you're writing multi POV or multiple timeline, do you write straight through like the reader will read it, or do you write each section of the character or timeline straight through
All of my books have multiple POV, and I have written them exactly like linear, like as they are. I say, okay, like the chapter one,
as they
chapter
are in the
two,
book?
chapter
Okay.
three. I write it that way, even if the timeline switches and the POV switches, except the one that I'm writing right now. I got stuck on something, so I ended up starting to write all of the past story. But then I thought of something else of like I thought of a better way to end it. So now I'm going to go back and I'm changing all of their careers and I'm basically rewriting the book. So I think I'm going to go back to just from beginning to end. I think I'm better that way.
Yeah, no, I think that that totally makes sense. What is the most bullshit piece of advice you've heard?
Oh God. Now see, here's the thing. The 1,000 of them, and I can't think of one right now. Uh, uh, it's got to be something about like, oh God, the bullshit advice. You know what? Probably like people giving advice that shouldn't give advice. That's bullshit
Yeah.
advice. Don't listen to bullshit advice
Yeah, it is. Don't listen to
because
people who don't know what they're talking about.
yeah. And you know what? And you know the people who don't know what they're talking about. And I think not listening to bullshit advice is the best advice I can give.
Perfect, because that was the next question. What's the best piece of advice you have?
Actually, no. Better best piece of writing advice that I got was do we need to know this and do we need to know it now? And that has helped me with
Yep.
my pacing so much because, again, used to put in a little bit too much information because I want the reader to know. But it's like, no, they don't need to know that right this second. Like, get on with the story, tell them that stuff after.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a hugely, like, especially when you're going through revision, right? Like
Mhm.
in your first draft, people need to do whatever you need to do to get through your first draft. But that revision, right? Like looking at every scene, is this
Yes.
what they need to know right now?
Yes.
What is the darkest idea you've ever had that scared you about yourself?
I toyed around with doing a serial killer book, and I quickly realized that it's not for me because, well, I mean, the good thing is, like,
That's all I want to write.
yeah, it's not for me. That's too dark for me to write. I can't get into because a lot of serial killer stuff, there's a lot of, torture and, you know, sexual assault and just too much stuff that, like when I read serial killer books and I like them, but I'm not qualified to write them. Mine are more like lighthearted murder. Lighthearted murder, not
Yeah.
stabbing somebody 75 times and carving stuff in their stomachs, and, like, that's just no, mine is, lighthearted murder.
I think if your book has the word innards in it, that's the book I
Yes.
would like. We're good. That's like a bear. That's a bar. Which,
Yeah,
if you're gonna read or not, is there innards? The word innards in your book.
yeah, that's a good one. I don't think I've used that.
So, how many drafts do you do before you share with anyone?
Well, it depends. Usually, 'cause when I'm actively writing, like, a completely new book, I start off with, one critique partner who I tell the story to, and, like, she'll know everything, so that way, I'll give her chapter by chapter, and that way she knows what's coming, so she'll be able to tell me, like, if I'm being too obtuse or if something's too obvious or, so she'll do it that way.
Yeah,
Another one I'll give in groups. She doesn't know anything about the story, but I'll give it to her in groups of, like, 10 or 20,000 words just so she can kind of do her stuff. And then I could see as I'm moving if I've done something really wrong along the way. And then at the end, I just have somebody do a complete read through, no editing, just read it and tell me, are there any plot holes? Are the character arcs work? Everything make sense? So I just kind of feel like
yeah,
that's a good balance for me, the way I put it together that way.
yeah. That makes sense. Okay, so what part of the process is your favorite?
My favorite, probably, as frustrating as it is, I love the new idea and the first time you're trying to form it. Like chapter 1, which is the bane of my
Yeah,
existence, but also my favorite part because you're putting together an entire story off of, that 5 pages is gonna set up everything. And that's exciting and it's fun,
it
but it's
is.
also,
It's
you work on that first line and the whole like everything is just like, "Arr."
it is. It is also, I agree with you because, but I think there's just so much like almost hope and excitement on that first like blank page because you're like, this could go anywhere.
'Cause it's the blank
And
page,
then,
like, it's the blank page, like,
yeah,
anything is possible.
yeah. And what part of the process is your least favorite?
Usually like I said before, the muddy middle, once you set the opening and you set the scene and you set what's gonna happen, and then, like I said, I have an idea in my head how it's gonna end. But sometimes just having characters just do stuff, you know, in the middle, it's like, that 25,000 words of and them just doing stuff. It's like, all right, like, how many times, like, you can't show them getting up and, like, brushing their teeth and going to the
Nope.
bathroom and, like,
Nope.
ordering French fries. Like, that's just boring. Like,
Yeah.
you have to make it good and make you don't want it to drag and be like sludge. You don't want people like sludge through the middle. So that's the
Yeah.
hardest part of writing for me. And it's like my biggest fear of, like, just having it drag in the middle.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. That is the difficult part because it's actually like the bulk. So there's like the book is in threes, right? You have your
Yes.
middle, beginning, and end,
Excellent.
but that
I agree.
middle,
Hmm.
whew,
Yeah.
man. Okay. And what is your old school favorite mystery or thriller you love to read or used to love to read?
Like way back, like when I was a kid or
Yeah, like so mine are Nothing Lasts Forever by Sydney Sheldon and Postmortem by Patricia Cornwell.
okay. So like when I was a kid, or when I was reading when I was like a teenager or a tween, I read like the Sweet Valley
It's like
High
that old
stuff.
school favorite.
I didn't even read like the R.L. Stein stuff. Like that was, which is funny because that's like such like a hallmark of like thriller writer things nowadays. But
Yeah.
I was into this Sweet Valley High stuff. And
Ooh.
yeah, and like Sweet Valley Twins and Sweet Valley High, that was kind of the thing I was into, which is probably why the first book that I wrote was kind of just like, a girl doing her stuff and, blah, 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 until like I said, I killed someone and I decided killing was better. But I do remember The Good Girl by Mary Kubica, that book, when I read that, that's when I said, like, I really, really want to try to be a writer because I loved that book. It gave me all the feels. I thought it was so well done. And I really that's still out of everything. I think she's written like 10 or 12 books now. And like, that is still my heart and true favorite. And I really,
Okay.
like, when I got all the feels, I said, that's what I want to do to somebody else. I want somebody else to feel the way I did. I want to write something that makes somebody feel the way I felt when I read this book.
That's amazing. How was it when I'm assuming you've met Mary?
Yeah.
How was that experience of meeting her for the first time, like as a fan, and she inspired you?
Yeah, well, she knows because I've been talking to her online. She blurbed my second book, and like
Oh
I've
my
been
God, that's great.
friendly with her online. But when I met, like, and I had told her, like, she knew the whole story that like The Good Girl was the one that like made me want to be a serious writer. And I'll scream that to anybody because I want everybody to read that book. I think she deserves all the recognition. And plus she's like Mary Kubica, like, multiple New
Yeah.
York Times bestseller and the whole thing. And she's just such a lovely person too. I have seen her, I met her twice, I think. Once was in New Jersey when I lived in New Jersey. I went with my two cousins when she was doing a signing. And then she was in St. Petersburg, I think last summer or last spring, I
Yeah.
think.
She was doing the book tour for Sorry Not Sorry last year,
I
right?
don't know,
Around
remember
this
if it
time.
was that one or Just Nicest Couple, whichever one. Yeah,
Okay.
you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
I think it
Yeah.
was Sorry Not Sorry. I think it was that one. Or maybe it was Just
Yeah.
Nicest Couple. I don't know. Hold on. I have it right here. This is how we'll find out. If this one, because this one was right here. If this one is signed, then it was this one. No, it had to be Sorry Not Sorry because I just saw this one like right here. So I'm like, okay. So the other one is somewhere. I just saw this one. So the other one's probably the signed one then. So yeah, you're right. It was that one. But it's funny because like I still like every time like I meet a writer who I hadn't met in person yet, like I still fangirl. I'm like, oh my God, look, I get to
Oh
meet
my
you. I'm so
God.
excited. I mean, they're still
It's
like my
so,
idols. And everyone's like, you're a writer.
yes, yes,
And I'm like,
exactly.
no, these are still my idols.
It's so amazing. Like, I feel that way. I've met the first time I met Jennifer Hillier, I was like shaking, like, oh my God, I just like you're the end. And then now, like, I like sometimes we just message each other, and I'm just like, oh my God, I just messaged Jennifer Hillier. What is my
I
life?
have the best story about Jennifer Hill. Oh my God, this is the best story. When I was going to Thriller Fest, no agent, no book deal, no nothing. She had just come out with Jar of Hearts, and I was so obsessed with that book. And I was living in New Jersey at the time. I brought my copy with me because I heard she was going to be at Thriller Fest, and I was like, oh my God, like if I get to meet her and she signs this book, it's going to be like insane. So I met her, and I met her in the bar. And, I tried not to trip all over myself, telling her how wonderful and great this was and blah, blah, blah. And then she signed the book, and it was like my prized possession. And I was so, so, so excited that I got to have that book and that I got to meet Jennifer Hillier. And then it was like fast forward like 4 years when I was doing, I didn't do it at Thriller Fest. I didn't do it, had just come out, and
Yeah.
I was doing the signing line. And in the signing room, they put you in like tables of two usually, and it's in alphabetical order. So I had the signing at the same time as Jennifer Hillier, and we were sharing the table. And we had met a bunch of times. And yeah, we had met a bunch of times in between. So I had met her before, but the fact that, and this is why I'm telling every writer, like, don't give up. The way I gripped onto that book when she signed it for me, and I was just made my life, made my life. And then it was just a few short years later, it was my third traditionally covered book, my traditionally published book, that I was sitting next to her doing a signing next to like an idol of mine, and it was already my third book out. So this is why
Amazing.
it could turn on a dime. You just have to keep going and keep going and keep going. But she really is such a doll and the sweetest person, and I just
She is, yeah.
I just felt so like, I could not believe I was sitting at a table with Jennifer Hillier. I was like, wow, wow, like,
Yeah, that's amazing.
I know. It was just so great. But I mean, everybody's wonderful in this industry. It's really a great community. The way everybody just,
Say that's I have found that to be true.
it's obviously professional stuff, but it's personal stuff too. Like, what's going on. I have breast cancer, and I've been dealing with a lot this past year. And the way the authors and the bookstagrammers and like everybody is just rallied around to do nice things for me and say nice things. And they've been doing giveaways for me, and they send me care packages. Like, it goes beyond the author reader relationship. It's these are my friends. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
these people are my friends. They're not my readers. They're not my
I
fans.
agree with you. Yeah, I love that. And then I think one thing that I feel like I take away from you the most that I've really learned is your generosity and willingness to turn around and help somebody else. So like I just think that so my hope is that one day when I am published that I can do the same thing that you've done for me, which is encouragement, like helping me to think about things, saying that, reading blurbs, those kind of things. All of that stuff is all super important. And it just feels like that encouragement of it's okay, I'm going to come around and like help you up too is so powerful. And I think that you embody that quite a bit that I've met from people in this community. A lot of people do it as well. But I just think that you're amazing at that.
Somebody did it for me. Somebody did it for them. Then they did it for me. I do it for other people. You're going to do it for people one day. And
Yeah.
it's just part of the process. Like, there's no like, I don't want to say there's no jealousy, because that's stupid, but there's no outward jealousy. It's everybody's got their own like
Yeah.
inward stuff going on. But just because, like, why would I not build up somebody else and their book? It doesn't mean that they're not going to buy my book also. Like, why would I not hype up a book that I love or an author that I love? Or everybody helps each other
Yeah.
with like their cover reveals and their releases. Like, we're all helping each other out, because like, why would you not do that? Like, these are your
Yeah.
peers.
This isn't a situation where it's uh like a scarcity issue, right?
Right.
Like, we have there's room for everyone.
Yeah, it's not like
So
there's
helping
like
to
a
bring
a
everyone along.
pie. It's not like everybody gets a piece of the pie and then it's gone. No, like, the pie is like, like the universe. Like, there's plenty for
Yeah.
everybody. Everybody gets a piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Jamie, on my first episode. I hope that you had a good time.
Of course.
Where can people find you?
I'm most active on Instagram. I am at Jamie Lynn Hendricks author. So if you need to say something to me, message me there, because I'm not very active. Like, I'm on TikTok, but I'm not really on TikTok. Um, I've been doing threads. I think I'm at author JLH on threads and TikTok. And then I have a Facebook page, which is Jamie Lynn Hendricks dash author. So that's where you can come and get me. And I'm willing to talk to anybody. If you want to do my one of my books in a book club, I'll zoom in with you guys, and I do fun stuff. It's
Oh
fun.
yeah, that's so great. That's one of the most fun things I think that I get to see authors doing that. Like one day I can't wait to do is that whole I'll get to go to the book club and like talk to people about it. And then especially with a mystery thriller, you get to touch spoilers at that point, which is
Yes,
so much
everybody's
more
read
fun
it.
than on your publicity tour stuff because you can't
Yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah, I can't tell you, what really happened here, but it's I think you'll like it. I think it ties up nicely.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again so much. Listeners, you can find me on Instagram at Sabrina Thatcher Author or sabrinathatcherauthor.com. If you would like information about my book coaching services, you can find that at crimeandquill.com. Until next time, stay sharp and write twisted.
Thanks, Sabrina.
Bye.